serious things, but we took a little bit of a diversion in this case and decided to, I guess, prank or make a demonstration, if you will, of some, I guess, academic misfeasance, to use a big word, that we seem to have stumbled into. We started out thinking that it was in the field of gender studies, which we have identified as being rather overtly political to the point of almost being religious. So that ties us to our background. We've both written books in the so-called atheism world. And then we ended up, because of the journal, with looking at a broader spectrum of problems that people seem to be really upset about. And I kind of understand why, but it's a bit unfortunate given that we have now drawn a massive amount of attention, more than we expected, to at least two, or maybe more than two, significant academic problems in one move.
Yeah, so this is the first time this has happened. I mean, Sokol published a paper. We talked about this last week on the show. Where quantum physics, quantum gravity is a social construct kind of thing, and
yes,
was that kind of, were you trying to repeat that and extend it a little bit at all?
Well, that's close. To repeat that is not quite accurate. To produce a new bogus paper in a similar style, which is, I guess in this case, a similar style of parody, which parodies the postmodern, jargon-laden, obscurantist language that permeates these fields, and did in Sokol's time. It still does today. In his time, it was characterized in terms of what's known as the science wars. I don't think those actually ended, although we haven't heard much about them lately.
Well, they didn't really learn from the first time, it seems.
I mean, I don't know what there is to learn, but again, there's this identification from their perspective. I mean, they have this very strange. The postmodern point of view is a very strange point of view, in which the general idea is that everybody possesses biases. These are heavily influenced by social structures and systemic forces in society, and we're not able to be free of our biases. Therefore, nobody really has objective truth. And if you don't have access to objective truth within or any semblance of objective truth within your foundational philosophy, it's very difficult to learn something.
Good point. Yeah.
From having, say, eggs smashed all over your face.
Yeah, I mean, what's more objective than stepping off a cliff and finding out that gravity goes one way and that's it?
It seems pretty cut and dry. And in this case, the most amazing fact, I had this story wrong in my head for many years. I've been familiar with it. But I was under the impression until recently, when I have been corrected, that the journal that Alan Sokol hoaxed, the Social Text was the name of the journal. Yes. I was under the misimpression that it had collapsed, but it did not collapse. It just carried on. It still exists. It's still with the Duke University Press, which is where it was before. It's still one of the bigger and I assume more lucrative journals in social commentary, although I don't know the details of that. And so, in a way, you're right. It seems like little was learned, but
yeah,
perhaps. I don't want to give this misimpression that we had this attitude like we're going to come in and this is what we're so widely being accused of, and demolish a field by pulling a stunt. That's not what, you called it a demonstration, and I think that's a good way to word it, because the goal of such an activity is to draw attention, and I keep seeing people calling it failed hoax, failed hoax, failed hoax, and I read Jerry Coyne, the biologist Jerry Coyne, wrote that in his opinion doesn't particularly make sense, because the point of a stunt like this is to draw attention, which it undoubtedly has, rather a lot of it. And
draw
if
attention to the issue, and in hopes that something like that doesn't get published, one would think. So
yes,
there's obviously a problem if it does.
Right, and in this case, we've serendipitously, I suppose, though we're being accused of treachery in this regard, ended up pointing at more than one problem at a time. One is the state of postmodern scholarship that hasn't changed since Alan Sokal's time and before that. And so now there's increased awareness and attention on that. So good. Another is the fact that we happened to publish this in a small open access journal that requires authors to pay for publication. Oh. So this has drawn an enormous amount of attention to these kind of mixed problems in academic publishing, one of which is that open access journals often carry, for reasons that are not clear to me, because I do think the open access journal project in general is a pretty good one, but they often seem to carry a rather lax peer review, and that could be because there's a conflict of interest. They want people's money or institutions' money, because often, like in our case, Portland State University was ready to pay for this. We just weren't going to implicate them in it. So universities have money earmarked for open access journals. The one we actually sent the paper to, which is being maligned as being this terrible journal and a vanity journal, which I'll come to in a second, is on the list of journals that the university is willing to pay for. It's, it's registered. So it presumably is registered with other universities too. So this is wasting not just, this isn't just a matter of like, a desperate author who wants his name on a paper can go pay some money. Universities are paying for this. And that adds a layer of complexity to the story that's not really being talked about. Well, nothing's really being talked about, actually shouted about. So the one side of it is that open access journals, which have been hoaxed hundreds of times across every field, just about sciences, computer science, humanities, you name it, open access journals have been pretty widely hoaxed. But on the other hand, there's another related problem, which is this so-called vanity press problem, which is where people just buy publication, and they'll publish literally anything. And we actually, in our Skeptic piece, referred to an example of such in the footnotes, this so-called Seinfeld hoax, where a fellow, I don't know if y'all watched Seinfeld, but I grew up on this and watched every episode like multiple times. A fellow pretended to be Kramer's character, Dr. Van Nostrand, and wrote a bogus urology paper about the infamous disease uromycetitis poisoning from the parking garage episode of Seinfeld. And I mean, it had the whole thing. It was a Seinfeld episode, or several of them, into an academic paper, and they hoaxed a vanity urology journal that would have published pretty much anything they got sent. And so you have these problems of open access journals, which may have just lax standards. They may have a conflict of interests. Then you have vanity journals, which clearly have a conflict of interest. Some of these are being paid for by universities. Everything's behind these really well done, in many cases, sets of indices and imprimaturs and everything else that makes it look like these journals are legitimate. Clearly legitimate enough not to fool us, but to convince university libraries that they should receive money. And this is a major other problem that has to be looked at. And we've drawn more. I mean, a lot of people have pointed out, you've done nothing original. Hundreds of pay to publish hoaxes have happened. And how much attention and controversy did they generate? Well, less than this. So hopefully we're drawing attention to this in a new way that's profitable in cleaning up this academic problem.
But this isn't just a pay to publish journal. It had to pass peer review.
Yeah, you couldn't just pay the editor and publish this. There were 2 reviewers, but often the problem is that the reviewers are not qualified, as this journal said was the case. Wow. Yeah. And that brings up another problem altogether with these small, maybe having conflict of interest journals, is that the journal had, for whatever reasons that we can't speculate upon, motivations to use substandard reviewers, which is okay. It is what it is for us. But there are other gender studies papers that have been published by Cogent Social Sciences. I went through the entire list of their social sciences papers today, all the ones that have the subheading sociology, which is what ours had, and I've looked at them, and there are a number that are explicitly gender studies. And so they have published gender studies papers before, and ostensibly they're not qualified to do so. And according to their statement about the hoax after the fact, they said they're not qualified to. So here is yet another issue, So the question is, what can be done about this kind of thing? But the answer starts with nothing if you don't know about it. So the hoax's purpose is to get attention, and mission accomplished.
But this isn't just a... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Twyla.
Well, no, you'd think people would hope that they're looking for reasonable, I don't know if you could say digestible information that isn't, made up from a Seinfeld episode. Do people not care that they're mad and they're calling it a hoax when you're trying to highlight the fact that, no, we appreciate good information. And this is obviously not getting published. Everything's getting published. So how are you going to weed the bad from the good? It's for someone like me, it's going to be absolutely impossible.
Right. And you should be able to trust the journal's editors and peer review system to be able to take care of that for you. So you have these journals on one end, like Nature and the really big, famous, high impact journals in the sciences that have extremely high credibility with their editorial and peer review systems. And then all the way down to the other end, you have these vanity journals that will literally buy any or sell. No, they'll buy. I got to figure it out. I've got it all confused. I'm sorry. I have a cold, and I've been up since 4 a.m. and it's getting close to 11. So
yes,
they will pay. They will publish anything if an author's willing to pay for it. And these are like the Seinfeld paper is a strict example of they would apparently publish anything. And then there's somewhere in between those, you have lots of different journals of lots of different qualities. And there's not a great way other than what's called impact factor to tell which is which. But that has to do with how often that journal's cited, not its internal practices or anything of that kind. The journal we ended up publishing with is somewhere on that spectrum. It clearly seems to have lax standards that it's reported is now going to try to tighten. I hope that's true. But I don't, as the internet has decided for me, they insist that this is a pay-to-publish vanity journal that will publish anything. That's been repeated countless times this past week. We don't understand that that's to be the case, but we certainly recognize that this is not a really sharp, good journal. So for the point you're making, though, is 100% valid, that the problem that this crisis in academic publishing represents is a crisis of trust on the part of the public. And we're seeing that in the reactions as well. The right wing is running with this pretty viciously, saying, look how crappy universities are. Look how crappy science and peer review is. And that's not accurate. We have in our write-up a paragraph dealing with that. So there should be a remedy brought toward this problem, so that, as we said in the skeptic piece we wrote, that we want to repair the integrity, the reliability of our peer review system, so that people like you can trust that if something has peer review on it, that it's good information.
Well, this is a problem. It exposes a larger problem. It's much bigger than the journals. There are whole swaths of what they call the soft sciences, which have succumbed to postmodernist thought. And isn't that a much bigger problem?
In my estimation, yes. This is actually a much bigger problem because the journals have this tool known as impact factor, and they have some other metrics by which, academic institutions, if I were at the university and I submitted my publication record and I have all of these small fry journals, the people in my department would recognize that these are really not good journals, and it's not necessarily going to count a lot for me. Of course, that may be different. I've dealt with mathematics departments. It may be different in the social sciences, which I've never dealt directly with. Maybe they are or are not as rigorous. I don't know. For instance, in gender studies, the top impact factor journal is near number 1,000 on the list of highest impact journals. So it's pretty niche, and it's hard, if there's that little variation between the best one and zero, it's hard to make a huge determination, or as clear of a determination as you could say with the sciences. But yes, as your question, yes, the humanities in large parts of them have been since the 1990s eaten up with this postmodern idea. and philosophy. And some of the departments, to hear different people from different parts of the humanities talk about it, have done better at purging much or some of this borderline gibberish passing as analysis, the critical theory stuff. But the gender studies department, which is why we chose this, not because we have some inherent bent against feminism or women as we've been accused of, but because the gender studies departments have not even attempted to purge themselves of this, but have directly embraced it, which is the opposite of what should have been happening after Sokol pulled his maneuver, after Steven Pinker, the cognitive scientist and linguist Steven Pinker at Harvard, published a book in 2002 called The Blank Slate.
Oh, yes.
And and that book absolutely takes to task the entire postmodern project. And so
as it should, as he should. I mean, like,
and yet it had no effect.
Yeah.
Well, that appears to be the question. Is it's not so much did it have an effect, it's where did and didn't it have an effect. And so I actually just saw a paper today. I'm going to not remember the name, which is bad, but I can look that up and send you a link if you need to for show notes or something. I just saw a paper today that pointed out that they did a systematic review of gender studies literature that cited the foundational paper of contemporary gender studies, which was published by two researchers, West and Zimmerman, in 1987, called Doing Gender. And that's where this whole performative social construct thing took off. And so what they did is they found what the woman did in her analysis was she looked at papers published, and I don't want to mess this up because I only had a chance to read it quickly, but she looked at papers that have been published since after the blank slate had time to be in circulation for a year, so from 2004 to 2014, in the gender studies that cited Doing Gender, screened for a couple of things, used a random or some kind of a selection criteria to determine which ones to examine, and then using some rubric decided to look and see if they are ideologically blinkered or not blinkered, and the vast majority of them are, in her conclusion. So it appears that whereas from what my friends in say PhDs in literature have told me, the literature has largely gotten over, so that's a humanities field, has largely gotten over its postmodern hangover as far as textual analysis goes. On the other hand, gender studies has not. And the evidence is actually being published and out there that it has not. And so some people moved away from postmodernism and other people seem not to have. And so the problem persists. So we decided to attempt another hoax of that material.
So you actually put a tweet out today. I want to look at this because I think I don't know the answer to these questions, and it was a challenge that you put out on which are real gender studies papers and which were made up. I don't know the answers to these, so you know the answers, obviously.
I have the answers. I can grab them again.
Awesome! Don't give them to me. We're going to play the game.
Oh, okay. I see. I think I'll remember which ones are which. But
okay, good. I'm going to read them here. Number 1, men wanted heterosexual aesthetic labor in the masculinization of the hair salon. Now, is that a real something published in Cogent Social Sciences, or was it? Or some are legit. I like how you put this. Some are from Cogent Social Sciences, and some are legit.
But that was just actually, let me be clear, because I don't know if Cogent is legit or not, but our critics are completely clear on the fact somehow in their minds that Cogent's not legit. So we're going to differentiate and see if they can pick them apart.
No true Scotsman fallacy. I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been no true right answers fallacy too.
Okay.
Actually, some people have gotten better over the course of the day, but then again, the answers are also there. So.
Okay. So, co-host, what do you think?
Can you say that again? It's about hair salons?
Oh, yeah.
The masculinization of the hair salon.
Yes, the masculine. Men wanted heterosexual aesthetic labor in the masculinization of the hair salon.
Oh now, are we to answer?
That's not.
Are we to answer whether it's published in that particular journal or whether it's been published in an academic journal generally?
So the question, since I guess I'll introduce the challenge I put on Twitter a little more clearly. The question is each of the following papers, which the titles of the papers are given, is that published in a prominent gender studies journal? Is it published in Cogent Social Sciences, which is where we published our hoax, or is it made up?
So there's three possibles. Okay.
Three possible answers.
I'll go with that one's been published in a prominent journal.
I'll say the second one it's not
Cogent?
fake, but it's in the Cogent.
No, I got to say that this is not legit because anything in gender studies is anti-white cis male. So, I mean, that was the whole point of the paper, right?
That sounds pro-cis male?
No, anti-white cis male.
I don't know. I think there could be a case made about something to do with the female gaze and all this kind of stuff, right?
There is no such thing. You can't have the female
thing
gaze.
as reverse.
Yeah,
sexism.
Right,
exactly.
of course,
Exactly.
of course.
Reverse sexism doesn't exist. Come on. Okay, so we've got our answers locked in here. What's that one?
That one is actually published in Gender and Society, which is the number one. The number
there you go,
one.
Chris.
No way.
Chris.
Oh.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow.
Actually, this
Don't forget I'm in, communication
Thing is,
studies.
what were the
and
results?
in basically, I've studied this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
I
You
have
got that advantage.
some
Thing is, what was your
studies.
conclusion?
I don't know. I just
Yeah.
chose
Yeah.
titles.
Ah, that would help me
for a
decide.
game.
That actually brings up a question. How did you write that paper? The conceptual penis as a social construct. How
I
how
don't-
deep down the rabbit hole did you go?
I mean, not very. I apparently, so I've been told, have a flair for what we might call creative mimicry. And so I did the little creative mimicry, and then Peter and I took turns adding a little bit more flair to it in different places, and then we just tried to jargonize and then academize it. And sort of I don't know if that's a word, but we tried to make it look like academic writing with proper citations and everything else.
And that's one of the things I find about, especially in the social sciences, it is so jargonized. It's almost as if they're very
Word salad.
very low
More word
self-esteem.
salad.
Yeah, well, they have low self-esteem, so they have to jargonize it up to the point of complete unintelligibility.
Because it sounds
sounds like
smarter. In fact,
pseudoscience as it is, because pseudoscience does the same thing. That's what gets my alarm bells going. If it's so
Drives me
much
nuts.
word salad and so much jargon, I dismiss it outright.
And that's a terrible shame because the legitimate
can't read it.
questions of the field are just obscured by the legitimate scholarship, or it gets obscured by this fashionable nonsense. It's
Yeah.
just
It's a shame. Okay, number 2. I just want to be me again. Beauty pageants, reality television, and post-feminism. I just want to be me again. But beauty pageants, reality television, and post-feminism. What is post-feminism?
That sounds interesting to study. I don't like how it's post-feminist. Well, whatever. I'd say that one's I'll go with what Christine guessed last time.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to go with Cogent Social Sciences, CSS.
that was in Feminist Theory, one of the top real journals.
All right.
All right, 3. Boy Scout cookies, gendered roles in scouting organizations and their impacts on heteronormativity.
Number 1.
Yeah,
You're
that
going
sounds
the same? Mm-hmm. I'll go with Cogent Social Sciences again.
I'll go
I
with
made
Chris
that one
again
up when I
because
was in the shower this
heteronormity
morning.
is huge
You
right
made-
now.
So you made
I
that
made
up?
that up when I was in the shower this
You
morning.
made it up? Okay.
Okay.
You're too good at this. So you could make a name for yourself in this industry.
If somebody wants to pay me to write satire, I am easily contacted.
But it's
by
not
the way.
satire when it's actually impossible to tell it from the real thing.
Yeah, really, that's the problem, eh?
What would be
You're too
the
good. You're
gender
too good.
study satire site like The Onion? What would you call it?
don't know. Probably
That could
something
be-
that would get me just absolutely torn apart. Probably something like pussy.
More
hat
than
or
now.
something.
No, at real peer review.
Well, yeah, new real peer
Yeah.
review. He's awesome. I
Yeah,
should say.
I think it's run by a woman, actually.
Is it a woman? Oh, I'm bad me. Oh, mea culpa.
Bias.
Gross and
It is a
racist.
team.
Oh,
It
I'm
is
a white
team,
cis
from what I
male.
understand.
Oh, I would love to have that person on the show. I would love to.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4, unpacking the invisible knapsack. The invention of white privilege pedagogy.
Cogent.
Yeah, just because of the
Yeah, I'm gonna go with
the word
cogent.
knapsack. But
Well, I'm gonna go with because of privilege. As soon as you get privilege in there.
That one is in Cogent.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the first comments I got in the game on Twitter was, I've heard of that paper. It was a major one. That has to be in a top.
Seriously?
No.
Oh my god.
Nobody has a clue. I mean, I've had a couple
Oh
of
my
people
God.
who've worked previously with some of the postmodern stuff or with women's studies, and they've had better guesses. But almost there have been a few people who've kind of gotten it, but the vast majority of the guesses are just all over the map.
Oh yeah.
And it's
there's a
gotten
reason.
shared by some big accounts now, so which is astounding. So it's had kind of I've had a lot of guesses, enough to where I didn't try to keep up with what people were saying after a while.
interesting.
Should have made it a poll, and then you could
Yeah,
collect
that's what I
the
was just
data.
thinking. Yeah.
It's more fun as a game. Well, it would have to be a
that's the
big
thing, though,
poll.
it's still a game, but
Yeah.
at least if it's in poll format, then you could pull the data after.
Yeah.
Twitter's not quite that sophisticated.
Yeah,
but
advanced. But if you put it on a page and send the link via Twitter.
I don't know if you can do a 12-part poll on Twitter.
Exactly.
No,
That's
no,
what I
no.
was thinking.
You
Yeah.
do the 12-part poll
Oh wait, you would do
on
one
a page,
each.
and then you
I get it.
link it via
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah, okay. All right, number 5. You're underestimating me, and you shouldn't. Women's agency in fantasy sports.
Fantasy sports.
Women's what in fantasy sports?
Women's agency in fantasy sports.
What is that?
Oh, it's
They're-
like autonomy.
yeah, autonomy. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
The agency is action.
You're an agent as
Yeah,
opposed to something
intentional
that's being acted on.
action.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'll say 2 just because of the word fantasy sports. I have no idea what, unless they're talking about gaming or something like that. I have no idea.
No. Fantasy sports is like having your own football team and picking and choosing which players you have on it, and you see how well they do.
It's Dungeons and Dragons for jocks.
Ah!
Wow. Awesome.
Oh!
I'm,
Swing!
I'm gonna say number 3. You made that up, James.
I made
Yeah,
that
I'm
one
gonna-
up.
I'm
Did you?
gonna
No, I
go
did
with
not
made
make
it.
that one up.
You
You
didn't
didn't?
make it
Yeah,
up.
I'll say the major one
Which
again
one?
because
Yeah, that's in the top. That's in Gender and Society.
Oh wow.
Wow. Okay. Huh.
All right, number 6. Gender's nature, intersexuality, transsexualism, and the sex/gender binary.
Oh, absolutely. The top gen.
What? Okay, say that slower.
Gender's nature, intersectionality, transsexualism, and the sex/gender binary.
Oh, wait a minute. Transsexualism is a bad word now, isn't it? No, transgenderism. I'm sorry.
Who can keep score?
Keep up.
Who can
Anyway,
keep score
we'll
these
get to
days?
that one in a bit. But anyway, I'll say number 1 this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that together. People study it constantly, so
I'm going with cogent.
That was in Feminist Theory.
I suck at this. I suck.
Chris and I are doing pretty good, I
Feminist
must
theory.
say.
Yeah, not bad.
I've only got 2.
Number 7. When they don't care as you do. An autoethnography of self-care practices for under-supported gender activists.
Auto. What was that again?
Autoethnography.
Oh, okay.
Autoethnography, yeah.
Okay. That would be in just a sec. Say the title again.
When they don't care as you do. An autoethnography of self-care practices for under-supported gender activists.
I'm gonna say that one's made up.
I'm gonna say number 1.
It sounds like too much like everyday feminism for me, so I'm going to say made up.
That's amazing. That is an everyday feminism blog
Yeah.
post.
I don't
Converted into a little bit more jargon.
Awesome.
That was
As soon-
a sharp. I mean, you just got all your points back right there.
As soon as I saw self-care, as soon as I see self-care,
Yeah.
I think everyday
I did
feminism.
wonder about that
every
because
time.
it's more like self-help than academic, theorizing. So yeah.
Booyah. Okay.
I
All
think
right.
I'm winning here. Must say.
But
No,
as far
if
as
you're-
autoethnographies go, you all should look at some of those. Yesterday, Real Peer Review shared one that was just recently published where it's an autoethnography of a guy who deals with the stress about being a gendered person by adopting a trans hippopotamus role. So
Yes, the hippopotamus paper. Oh, okay, that's the reference. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't see the actual paper, but I'm going to have to look that one up.
Autoethnography.
You just can't make that stuff up. I would say that, but that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, it's researcher participation. You engage yourself in the culture, right?
With
Like this
hippopotamus?
has import from anthropology. Sorry, not anthropology. What's it called when you? Oh my God, my brain. When you study cultures, not
ethnography,
not
Yeah.
anthropology.
No.
cultural anthropology, maybe no.
Yeah, sounds like
Yeah, culture. Yeah, anthropology. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you
Okay.
study other cultures. Now, sometimes I was thinking anthropology or Anyway, so that's it's had good import into something like that, right?
So autoethnography is a Wikipedia page worth checking out if you haven't. It is it's sort of a blend of autobiography and ethnography. So you're trying to make important social commentary about the social groups that you find yourself in while telling an autobiographical story at the same time.
We should link that one.
There's some good ones.
Sure.
I mean, there are some good ones.
All right, number 8. Is our feminism bullshit? Well, maybe theirs is. The importance of intersectionality in adopting a feminist identity.
Number 2, number 1.
Yeah,
So
I'm
the
on the fence
legit-
there between those two.
I'm going with EF again.
The what?
Everyday feminism, EF.
Big.
That-
Oh, okay, then
that
I'll go
one-
in the middle just
That
because.
one, yeah, that's in the middle. It's Cogent.
Okay.
Got it again.
Oh well.
I'm
Number
totally
9.
winning.
Fem interventions and the proper feminist subject. I have no idea what that means.
What?
Exactly. Fem interventions and the proper feminist subject. Critical approaches.
F-E-M-M-E?
Sorry, I'm not done. Just
What the heck is fem intervention?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Spell it FEMME or FEM?
Yes. FEMME. Critical approaches to decolonizing Western feminist pedagogies.
Number 1. Choice number 1.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with that too because of pedagogies.
I'll go the other extreme and say that one's made up, but not gonna.
That one
bet my
was
life on
also
it.
Cogent Social
Oh,
Science.
close.
Go
Nice.
in the middle. We all lose.
See, look,
Yep.
that's what I'm talking about.
No
though.
one
How are you going to
wins.
just judge the journal as utter crap if nobody can tell?
Well, exactly. Yeah, no one wins
gonna
at this either.
I'm going to skip this next question. I'll be right back.
Okay, so number 10.
It turned out to be
Moving-
the right answer.
What? Miss Skippy?
Yeah, skip.
just don't play the game.
Pass on that one.
10. Moving beyond cis, as in CIS, sisterhood. Oh, God, that is terrible. Determining gender through transgender admittance policies at U.S. women's colleges. Moving beyond
What?
sisterhood. Oh, that is
Sisterhood. That's right.
that's terrible.
It's pretty bad.
It's really bad.
I'm gonna go cogent with that one.
Oh, yeah, it's too. Okay, for a really legit journal, that is too cute. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with it's made up.
It's made up. Well, it turns out that one's in the top gender studies journal,
Oh.
Gender and Society.
It's even worse.
Seriously. Okay, so they do cute too, do they?
Oh, that's not even a good
Sisterhood.
pun.
We're just kidding. There's a problem in the
Collaboration.
field going on over here.
It's worse than journalism. I mean, journalists live for puns. I mean, okay. 11. Eyes that pop. How nonconformist gender performances by heterosexual men reinforce gender stereotypes.
Oh, let's go with the top on that one, man.
Nonconformist.
Those gender stereotypes are always being enforced, you know.
Islip Pop. Well, I'm going to have to go for Cogent then.
I made that one up.
Ah!
Good job.
You're too good at this. And the last one. 12. Aggressive and loving men. Gender hegemony in Christian hardcore punk. Oh, gee, what?
What?
You know what Hank Hill said, right? You're not making rock and roll, or you're not making Christianity any better. You're just making rock and roll worse.
Yes.
I'm going to hope this one's at least cogent.
Aggressive and loving man. Gender hegemony in Christian hardcore punk. No, that's a mishmash. No way. I got to go for it's fake.
The top?
Wait a sec. I'm back.
Oh, you're saying
Oh,
fake.
sorry. Okay.
So far we've got cogent and fake.
Okay, and this is the last one. Aggressive and loving men. Gender hegemony in Christian hardcore punk.
Because I know there is Christian hardcore punk.
Number 2.
That one's in Gender and Society, the number one gender studies journal.
Okay.
Awesome.
What is driving this? It's not even qualitative research. It's subjective stuff.
Extremely
It's subjective points of view.
That's
That's it. It's experiences and not reality. It's not grounded
It's
in
like
anything.
a bad alternative friggin' medicine class in nursing.
Not all of it's bad. It's just accumulated to such an extent that it's being abused,
There's
essentially,
a
right?
lot that's bad, though. It's getting worse, I think.
Well,
I don't know.
if you look at the
think it's
more
getting worse?
foundational things, yeah, totally.
James, do you think it's getting worse?
I think that certain aspects are getting worse. I don't know necessarily whether or not the reliance upon, the very pure postmodern ideals from the 90s is getting worse. I suspect the political aspect of what's going on is getting worse, not better. And I think the extreme polarity in their polarization in both society and the academy are probably fueling that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. There is still good research in those fields, but
It gets
It'd be nice to be
degrading,
hidden
right?
by all this.
Find it. It's a matter of finding it now. Somebody like me is going to be lost.
So, James, what did you use for the journal ranking thing that you looked at? Because I just want to mention out there, it's come up
index?
in my it's come up in my department about this predatory publishing, right?
Oh, that's a big
so
problem.
I'm aware of it, right?
Yeah.
But there are some ranking sites. There's let me see
Impact
here.
factor for journals. There's a listing like what
So
CSR does that one.
SJR, Scientific Journal Rankings.
So for
Skimago.
publishing, SJR, when I say, Gender and Society is the top, it's listed there, and another index was the University of Pittsburgh index.
Okay.
But when I chose a journal to publish this in, I just went straight by the name off of real peer review.
Okay.
So I saw a journal called the International Journal for Masculinity Studies and thought, well, the conceptual penis has a home there. And turned out it did.
Absolutely.
It did and did not, but ours did not. That's the journal that rejected ours and then sent it on to Cogent. But very interestingly, Real Peer Review showed me today that they published a paper in 2014 that is about phallic masculinities as opposed to conceptual penises. And after having perused the paper, it's significantly different from ours, but there are occasional striking parallels where essentially the struggle for masculinity or healthy masculinity is caught up in this phallic masculinity versus other kinds of masculinity. And therefore, through psychoanalytic theory ties back to the male genital organ. And this, of course, is oppositional to femininity in all its forms. And I was just like, holy crap, if we would have been a little less funny, we would have got this in somewhere.
Well, and what, in your opinion, should have tipped people off the most about your paper?
It's absurd. It's just, it's just absurd.
Well, masculinity or manspreading is raping the space around you.
I mean, there are a number of gems in there. And then I was really nervous about one. Peter and I talked about it the other day, and we can't remember who thought of it. But there's a rather long and impenetrable paragraph of run-on sentences and jargon that ends with "all perspectives matter," And
Oh,
I figured
wow.
that would straight up be disqualifying, but it turns out,
Oh, that's postmodernism right there in a nutshell.
Yeah.
well, it is. But at the same time, with the whole political thing going on with everything, all something mattered. If it matters, I thought we were dead in the water on that one.
Wow.
Well, it's lip service.
Slate
All
had that.
perspectives matter as long as they're, match yours, right?
Well, I think it's not quite that. If you really want to know what I think is going on behind postmodernism, is that the ranking for whether a perspective matters or not is its degree of contemporary and historical oppression. And so when we could get into this, I can't go deeply into it, but it's
unfalsifiable.
It's a swamp.
It's totally
it is
unfalsifiable.
Unfalsifiable.
Yeah, Slate had this hit piece on you guys. The phallic anxiety probably drives male academics to execute lame hoax about gender studies.
Wow, did they miss the point?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's Salon too. I found I tend to really be tempered in what I read from Salon anymore.
Yeah, I've utterly boycotted them for a couple of years now. I haven't read anything on there.
Yeah,
it was a massive internal struggle to decide whether or not to read my first Salon hit piece put out on me or not.
You've made it. You've made it.
When?
When
but there were two
decides
on
to
the same
slaughter your whole point.
Either on the same day or close to on the same day.
Oh,
which
hell.
is even better. Yeah.
Heaven. Nirvana. Well, it's been great having you on, James. I know you.
I have a question.
So you got a question? Sorry.
I do. So this, I'm sure you've heard about this incident with Hypatia, the philosophy tutor.
Right.
Yeah. What's your
did.
take on that? Like, it just seems like a very
Fits right
interesting
in there.
coincidence that these two papers kind of came out almost simultaneously. And have you? I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but have you had any contact? Okay, yeah. Have you had any contact with her?
I have not.
I think you guys have like an alliance almost, right?
Well, we in some sense, yeah, we probably do. But that's a really interesting situation because it reinforces what I was saying about the political side of this possibly getting worse. It's an excellent example because the paper, for whatever its merits or not merits or whatever, does present a compelling argument that was for purely political reasons. Not only shut down.
It's philosophical.
It was philosophical.
Yeah.
But these arguments apply in case X. Here's a parallel argument that applies in case Y. Let's see why they do or don't work. Oh, it seems like they should. And then, all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
She's been pilloried by even people that were her academic advisors, by friends. Apparently there were cases where she was being trashed publicly and then getting don't take it personally emails privately.
Whatever.
And then the journal retracted the paper, which was academically sound, even if controversial. It apologized. The fact
was
that
it actually retracted or was it?
I think it was. Maybe I don't know the story on that accurately. To my knowledge, I thought it was, but I could be mistaken. But at any rate, the overwhelming clear message here is that the political conclusions going on within the field run in front of the willingness to engage with argument or evidence or science or philosophy that they find uncomfortable or unpleasant.
Yeah. And there's this accusation that she was enacting violence with her words. Like this argument just kind of coming up, words are violence, as though that's
I'm still waiting for somebody to
physical.
accuse us of being violent.
Yeah,
actually.
well, I'm sure it's somewhere on the internet.
It just totally sucks all the meaning out of these words.
Yeah.
Racism and misogyny and violence. They're meaningless now.
That's a huge problem. Those are words that should carry a pretty significant punch and have a very clear demarcated meaning. And the postmodern theory where you get to interpret the meaning of words according to the way they make sense to you, in a sense, and as long as those follow certain vectors, if we will, of hierarchical power in society, then they carry enough social validity to be taken seriously. For instance, the redefinition of racism to mean only systemic racism And then this, of course, just leaves everybody confused. And then there's all these unnecessary semantic fights about whether or not there's such a thing as racism against white people.
Yeah.
And
I got told again today there's no such thing as reverse racism.
right. Yeah. So there's no such thing as reverse systemic racism. That's a thing. Although I still have questions about that I don't even think I'm allowed to answer. For instance, I occasionally visit China. And I am a definite minority in China, and there is definite racism there, but I don't know if that counts. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't count as racism against me, even though I'm outnumbered something like 2.5 billion to 1 or something.
Well, but what did you experience?
I experienced people treating me like I came out of a zoo, which maybe that had nothing to do with my skin color. I don't know. They did say things
That's
like
all they care
ugly,
about.
so that probably did have something to do with my skin color. I mean, I actually have seen like legitimate.
Whoa!
Hey, it's party time.
What is that?
That's not me.
That's my ringtone. I'm sorry.
Oh, whoops.
It's Rage Against the Machine. I'm sorry. I thought I put my silent. Oh God. I had everything else set up and I forgot to put my silent on silent. Sorry.
That's how Canadians stay so polite, is they listen to Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah. We have to have some kind of outlet, mowing down moose.
That's right. Mowing down moose, Rage Against the Machine, sliding around on ice rinks with swords on your feet.
Yes.
Carrying a stick and slapping
That's a cool picture.
a rubber device, vulcanized rubber disc at people's faces at 130 miles an hour. See, I've been studying your culture.
Well,
Canada's next.
You're microaggressing Canada.
I am microaggressing.
Totally.
I'm macroaggressing Canada.
Macro. It's full
I was
blown
almost
macro,
a Canadian
baby.
citizen, actually, so I get some credit. I was born in New York in a hospital overlooking the St. Lawrence River, and Canada was visible out the window. And my dad angled to have me born in Canada so I would have dual citizenship. And my mom was like, "We're just going to the closest hospital."
Interesting.
Well,
I used to
one in
go to
labor
Canada
gets to
every
stay
day
there.
when you didn't have to have a passport. I could just
Wow.
walk across the border.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, any more questions? So we'll let this poor sick individual go to bed and probably have some honey chamomile tea. That would probably
No, rum and butter.
I'd
Butter
almost
rum.
say it's
Doesn't put you to
mission
sleep.
accomplished with what they did. Unfortunately, some people are too dumb to get it, just to say it in layperson terms.
well.
That's because you can see there's the Canadian niceness. See, we have Southern hospitality down here, which is not
I
quite
tend
like
to be a
that.
blunt
You will
one.
find we are not all smiles and sunshine.
Yeah.
particularly
I
on
would
me.
say that.
And that is
lot
not
of,
a Canadian accent.
No, that was German.
a lot of people
Simpsons.
down here, would say that they didn't quite, get the whole thing. Bless their hearts.
Yeah, bless your heart. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, James, for being on. It's
Absolutely.
been great.
And congratulations for the controversy. Well done.
Yes, I think you
Yeah.
did a
Thank
good
you.
job on that. Hopefully,
And to
something
Peter
good
as well.
comes
Say
out of it.
hello to Peter.
I hope so
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Say hi to Peter for me too. Yeah.
Keep up the great
Oh.
writing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Well, they can follow you on at God Doesn't on Twitter. There's also your book, Everybody is Wrong About God.
They are.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's great having you on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
That was very cool.
Yes, it was. Okay.
Yeah, this was a little bit lighter than some of the interviews I've been on.
That's okay. We're still on, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I have a second guest coming up
that's
here.
good. Very good. That
you wanna
still
stick
was a
around
little
and
bit
hang?
lighter.
Oh, you
I
can
won't
stick
throw
around.
the I won't throw the hostile ones under the bus then by
Good.
name. No, I really should crash.
Great.
I'm not feeling the best at the moment. So
Well, have a
Get
good
well
night.
soon.
Get well.
Thank you again.
Make yourself.
cheers.
well.
I'll hang up.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right. Now I have to reach across time and space for our next guest. Just excuse me for a moment.
Away.
Yes. Okay, we're ready.
I have to go sign a paper, I think. Hold on.
You're gonna. All right.
Yeah, I have to go sign a paper, so I'll be right back.
All right. Well, okay. You go sign some paper. Where's Rhonda's? There we go.
Oh, she's
One
actually Skyping with
ring-a-dingy.
us. I thought she'd like just sit with you.
Hello. Well, that's a little difficult because I got the headphones.
Okay.
And we are now on live with my darling wife, Rhonda. Hi, Rhonda.
Hello.
Hey, Rhonda.
Hello, Chris.
How you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Nice to hear your
Sounds
voice, and welcome back home.
Thank you.
Just a new experience for you. We're going to be talking about your trip to Ghana in Africa, where you volunteered as a nurse, and what prompted you to do this, actually?
Well, a couple of things. Partly, my rationale was that there's a long gap between my last clinical experience as a student and my next clinical experience as a student. There's about a 9-month gap in there. So I kind of wanted to brush up on my skills and get myself kind of back on point, right? And the other part was I wanted to do something meaningful and be able to work with an underprivileged country and maybe learn from them, maybe provide them some ideas and ways that we do things in Canada that maybe they don't know about and that sort of thing. So I thought, I could maybe gain some experience and be able to help them out at the same time. It seemed like a win-win.
Yeah. So you'd had a long flight through Amsterdam to Accra.
Yeah.
From there, you bussed to Kumasi. What were your initial thoughts of Ghana?
Well, I arrived in Accra on a Friday night at about 8 o'clock. And I had Saturday free, so my volunteer coordinator picked me up at the airport, and then she took me to what she called the apartment, and so we had Saturday free, and then that left Sunday that we were going to actually get on the bus to Kumasi. And before I left, the volunteer organization had provided me with a booklet that provided me some information, things to know ahead of time that Ghanaians are typically so friendly. Like, don't be concerned that they're so friendly that they're going to want to touch you and be very communicative that way, and that they're very welcoming. And then they warn you against the obvious tourism stupidity, like don't be flashing your cash around, don't be out drunk on the streets after dark, and that sort of thing. And I thought, okay, this is common sense sort of stuff. I can do this. I do my research ahead of time before I go to a country, so I thought this all made sense. And then reality came crashing in. The coordinator was there to pick me up at the airport like she was supposed to be, but she wasn't ready for me. There was no ride there. And so we waited over an hour, I'm guessing maybe an hour and a half, for the ride to show up. And it was so it was just the coordinator, the one woman that was waiting with me. And then when the ride showed up, there were 2 men. So now it's a little bit intimidating. Here I am in a strange country, going on into a car with one woman and 2 men. That was a little bit intimidating. And right away we had to stop for gas. And I thought, really, we couldn't have gotten gas before you came to pick me up? But all right, maybe it's a cultural thing. And so all this time I'm standing in the parking lot waiting for this ride to show up. There's no water. It's over 30 degrees. The humidity, I'm guessing, was probably around 80-90%. And so it was just unbelievably hot and everything, but there's no water or anything. Just stand there and wait. And I could hear the coordinator talking to other people around her. I could tell they were talking about me, but not to me. Like, you just sort of know that, when they're kind of look at you and they're laughing and whatever, and then they go back to their conversation. And so everything about it was making me uneasy. So then we get in the car, and then we have to stop for gas right away. It took about an hour and a half to get to the apartment, which at no point did anyone tell me it was going to be such a long ride. And then we get there, and it's dark, and there's cockroaches and in my bedroom and whatever, and there's this greasy stained mattress with filthy stained curtains hanging right above it, and what could only be perceived as feces on the window ledge that's right above the bed. And I don't know whether it was bug shit, bird shit, mouse shit. It didn't care really, right? It's obviously some sort of shit on the windowsill. But whatever, it was not a great first impression. So it looked like something from a horror flick or a true crime or something. It was, my very first impressions from that first night was kind of frightening.
And now that you Okay, let's get to the next question, I guess. So, yeah, now you went there to volunteer as a nurse, and how did you find the hospital and healthcare in general in Kumasi?
I was pretty surprised. I kind of thought, I know, of course, this is a third world country, so this is my first foray into volunteer nursing in a third world developing country. I kind of expected more things to be sort of standard, like hand washing, the use of sanitizing substances to clean your skin before you inject something into it, and certain equipment I thought would be the same as it is here, and a lot of things were not like that at all. Like the windows, as probably a lot of people have seen when you go to Mexico or the Dominican or wherever you see those slat windows that are open, and they had screens trying to keep the mosquitoes out, but the mosquitoes were in the hospital rooms too, and patients expressed concern that they were getting mosquito bites overnight, and then you could see water damage in the ceiling where people be laying on beds that I swear had been thrown out after World War II, but the ceiling had been damaged to the point where the paint was peeling and there was mold and pieces of wood and whatever falling out of the ceiling right over the tops of the patient beds, and it was really quite surprising to me to see those conditions.
Yeah, and so you stayed with. Tell us about the family you stayed with in Kumasi.
So I had a host family that the volunteer organization had placed me with, and so the thinking was you stay with the locals and you live like the locals and you work like the locals, which is totally okay with me. I was interested to experience that, and the host family was probably fairly well off as far as Ghanaians probably go. So it was a nice house with tiled floors and 2 bathrooms and I think 5 bedrooms and a nice big kitchen. So by Ghanaian standards, it was a fairly nice home. The coordinator had asked me ahead of time about my religious background, and she had asked me, what church do you go to? And I said, well, I don't. Well, oh, do you go to a mosque? Well, no. And so right away I was getting a feeling like, oh, this is sort of a big deal, right? And she said, well, what do you do then? And I said, well, I don't go to church. I'm an atheist. And she had no idea what that word was. It was completely, I may as well have been speaking Mandarin or something. Like she was just totally had no idea what that word meant. And I explained it to her and she just was astounded. She couldn't believe that was a thing, that you could not believe in any God whatsoever. And so, but at least she had sort of an open sort of perspective about that and wanted to know more about, how did you come to that belief and that sort of thing. And so then she was kind of warning me that, okay, well, the host family that you're staying with, the father is a pastor, a Presbyterian pastor. And so then, of course, the family is going to be religious as well. And they're going to have prayer before dinner, like before meals and whatever. And I said, that's totally fine. I can be completely respectful. No issues from my end whatsoever. Like they won't be thinking, oh, what is this woman doing here? She's such a heathen, right? Like I'm going to be completely respectful. And so then on the very first night, the pastor's wife, so she's about the same age as me, a little bit older. I think she was about 55-ish or something like that. And she had asked me the same questions about, so what's your religious belief? And I was like, oh my goodness, why does this keep coming up? But okay, whatever. And I told her I was an atheist. And again, I had that same surprise. What is that? And I had to explain to her, she had had an previous experience working in a laboratory, and so I was using the analogy of, asepsis, a meaning without and sepsis meaning without, disease or infection or whatever. So the a means without, and theist meaning God, and atheist means without God. And she was just astounded that there was even a word for such a thing, because she just couldn't believe that somebody could be a non-believer. And then later on, when her husband was available, so now I'm talking to the pastor, and he was, I think, about 64, and then he was asking, well, do you go to church, and are you not a Christian? And I said, well, no. And, well, what are you then? Are you a Muslim? And I had to explain what the word atheist was again, all over again, and he too was astounded that there was such a thing. And both of them were like, well, have you read the Bible? I said, yes, I've read the Bible. Have you been to church? I said, yes, I've been to church. I've been to Sunday school. It's not that I don't know about these things. I just don't believe it. And so they were trying to cement something that it must be because she doesn't know better, that maybe she's never been enlightened. And so I was trying to shut that down as quickly as I could, that no, it's not that I don't know better. It's a choice. I truly don't believe this. And they asked me, why don't you believe? And I said, well, I don't want to offend you with my beliefs. Like, hint, hint, hint. Don't be offending me with yours. Leave it alone, yeah. Right? But nope, it had to go on for quite a long time. So then my next experience was the next night. So these folks, they had, I think, 5 children that were in their late 20s, early 30s. And one of them, their sons, was still living with them. I think he was 29. So the next night, he decides to come knocking on my bedroom door. And so in the whole house, because of mosquitoes and malaria and whatever, all the doors are kept closed at all times. The kitchen door is closed, the living room door is closed, all the doors are closed. And so when the door was knocked on, I assumed it was the mom coming to chat with me or something, because it would be, at least in our culture, a little weird if a guy comes to a woman's bedroom and wants to be let in. But anyways, it was the son. And I don't know, how much should I go into that story with the bra on the back of the door? But anyways, so he wants to know if he can come in and talk to me. And I said, sure, a little weird because I've got my bra hanging on the back of the door. But I was thinking, okay, well, he's a pastor's son. And from what I know of preachers and pastors and whatnot, they try to be welcoming to their flock and what have you. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's not weird for him to come to a woman's bedroom like this. He's just being welcoming. But of course not. There's an agenda. And he says to me, well, I hear you're a non-believer. Can you tell me why? Why are you not a believer? Have you read the Bible? Have you been to church? Because I'm a Sunday school teacher, and I can tell you it's a wonderful thing. So I'd like to hear more. And I'm thinking, you don't want to hear more. You just want to tell me about it. But whatever, I'm trying to stay open-minded. And so I said again to him, I don't want to insult you with my beliefs. Just, could we leave it be that you believe and I do not? And that, no, I really want to know. Like, nothing you say will offend me. Go ahead. So I explained what biblical discrepancies could come to mind at the moment, and how, as far back as I can remember, that I'd never believed in anything that it happened in church or what my mom had told me. And it never made sense to me how a parent could be so sick as to torment his children to pick which lived or died based on whim or whatever, and how I believe religion is the single number one reason why men and women are not equal, and that it was, came from the ancient belief, or maybe not so ancient, that might is right, and so therefore man shall have dominion over all of the earth, and that included women because they're biologically smaller than men, and all of those things, right? I just kind of like, okay, well, you asked, blah, blah, blah. Here it all is, right?
Good for you.
And meanwhile, he's like, well, what about this? And what about that? And have you thought about this? And so, like, the pressure is non-stop, right? He's not asking, just like I thought, he's not asking for where I'm coming from. He's looking for an opportunity to, push his agenda. And I told him again, I don't want to go on and risk offending you with my beliefs, like leave it alone. And it was just really clear, at no point was he curious. He was only looking for ammunition and things to refute me on. So
I think that's pretty typical.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they've never met an atheist, it must be quite fascinating to them too, right?
That probably in a horrifying kind of way.
Yeah.
Well, horrifying at first.
As an oddity.
But,
You're an oddity.
Then you're just a normal person as they get to know you and that kind of
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then it is their job to convert, because this is an anomaly and evil that must be fixed.
Yeah, exactly. And it must be. And so that perplexed them too. I'm sure that it's not because I don't know better. Because that was their number one ammunition, right? Was that
She just doesn't know better.
Yeah, so we're going to educate her. Well, no. Let me tell you about the things I know about the Bible. Like, you can't tell me that stuff that I don't already know.
I've been asked a couple of times, like, why don't you believe? And I just kind of turn around and say, why do you believe? And then you just shut things down pretty quickly. And I don't mean to be sarcastic, like, this is just an innocent question that I would ask to people that now I realize is probably kind of offensive or whatever. But it's just like, how can you believe? Or, well, I didn't say how can you believe, but, why don't you believe? Well, my automatic response was, like, why do you believe? Like, what evidence do you have, right?
Oh, well, it goes on. So
this is when I was a kid, right? And today too, but
the mother tried that with me later on. Because, like she said, she was like, well, let me tell you about why I believe. And I was like, oh, God, I don't want to hear it.
So to speak.
So to speak, yeah. We need better, something that has no God references for our expressions.
Fuck.
Oh, my
Oh,
FSM.
fuck. I don't want to hear that.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. There's times for that.
My next experience is I was going shopping with my coordinator that weekend. And so there's these trotros that get people around. And so what they are, they don't have an organized bus system like we have here, right? And so what you do is you walk down to the main street and you just hang around there. And there'd be like a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Passenger van. So like a Toyota passenger van or a Nissan. It would seat 12 people. Yeah, about 12 people. So not minivan, we're like 7 people, a little bit bigger, like 12 people. And there'd be one guy driving and one guy hanging out the side, like having the door wide open and hanging out there. And he'd be yelling to the people on the street where they're going. And so then you just flag them down and then you'd pay some nominal sort of fee and you'd get on with all the other people that were on there. And then you'd tell the guy when you want to get off and then they just drop you off someplace. And it was actually a really fantastic way to get around because it was way faster than any city transit. Because there were millions of these trotros. They were everywhere, right? So within a minute, you could be on one and on your way. It was fantastic. But of course, on the trotro, there was this guy sitting beside my coordinator, and he's trying to preach to her. And so he wants to pray for her, and he wants to tell her some stuff out of the Bible or whatever. And he was apparently drunk. And according to her and to numerous other people I talked to, drinking in Ghana is, even though they're a largely Christian country, drinking is considered an abomination. If you have any proper faith at all, you will not take alcohol. And I asked somebody about that. I said, but even Jesus supposedly made wine into water into wine. So how is this so horrible? And their answer was, it just is. Oh, okay.
Well, the irony of that is that you asked him at a bar.
Yeah, I think he was a closet atheist, actually.
Yeah.
Because he referred to me as enlightened.
Huh.
And even though he was going to church on Sunday and that sort of thing, and I thought it is probably because of pressure, right? That you don't dare say that you don't believe this stuff. You go to church and say all the right words and stuff, and you don't refer to atheists as enlightened normally. If you're a believer, right?
Did you try humanist? Do they understand humanism?
No,
I know there's movements and that kind of thing, obviously, but
I tried that too, and
okay.
They didn't go for that, so they didn't understand that any better than atheist.
Interesting.
So then a couple of times when I was so I had a private driver that took me to the hospital every day and then picked me up at the end of the day and took me back to the house. And 2 times the pastor came with me so that he would go and be dropped off someplace after I was dropped off, so that he could do street side preaching the entire day. And so, like, in that booklet that I was given ahead of time telling me how friendly the Ghanaians and everything were, at no point in that booklet, I think it was something like 30 pages, at no point did it mention this is an uber religious country, so be prepared. And every taxi cab, every school bus, every street sign, everything said Jesus saves, and like this is Jesus saves fast food joint, and this is Jesus saves.
Jesus bricks. You got to tell them about the Jesus bricks.
Jesus blocks, yeah. And I meant it, and so many times I had my camera ready and I just missed where the sign was, because cement blocks, Jesus blocks is one place, right?
What the hell?
There's a church here in Red Deer, and we call it Jesus Loves You Church, because all around it, on fences and everything else, there's Jesus Loves You and all this stuff. They've now moved it just onto the church as modern times have come, and they've painted the fences and stuff around the neighborhood. But this doesn't really surprise me. The only thing that surprises me is because that's in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Africa is also Muslim, like Egypt and such. So maybe it's a way of fighting back against another majority religion.
Yeah, I don't know. I did my elementary school in a Muslim country, so I have experienced living with, kind of immersed in the Muslim kind of community, and there were a few Muslims in Ghana, and so sometimes on the highway, you'd see as I was on the bus, and there'd be a semi-truck pulled over, and the driver would have his mat out in front of his semi-truck and doing his prayers right there on the side of the road, and I thought, that's just asking for God to smite you, but...
Yeah. Well, obviously the predominant one seems to be Christian, though, there.
They were over 70% Christian in Ghana, which surprised me, too, that they were so fervently religious, too. I had no idea I was going to, like, the Bible Belt of Africa.
Yeah, there's been incursions by the Catholic Church and kind of fused with some previous superstitions before
local,
belief in witchcraft and this kind of thing, right?
Well, the same thing happens in Nigeria and places like that, where they're still looking to kill witches.
Yeah.
And that whole thing mixes in, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ghana was a British colony until 1957, I think, when they won their independence. And it was interesting talking to the host mom on the last day, and one of the things that she had said was that that she was so grateful that the Europeans had come to Ghana and enlightened her people. And I said, they murdered and tortured your people and forced them to become Christians. And she says, the people were so backwards before. They believed that the rocks and the trees and the rivers all had spirits, and it was so good that we were enlightened. And I said, who said that they're wrong?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
yeah.
She was adamant that she was so grateful that they had been enlightened. So anyways, there was one day when the family had invited me. I guess it's a big deal when someone wants to propose marriage. So the eldest son wanted to propose marriage to somebody's daughter, and so what happens is the parents go, the groom's parents go to the bride's parents' home and ask if their son can marry their daughter. And they asked me if I would like to go to this ceremony. And so I said, well, that would be fantastic. So we get in the car to go, and right away, before we go anywhere, there's a hands held prayer. Please, Jesus, watch us and make sure we get there safely, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And so we get about halfway there, and wham, there's an accident, right? And so the host mom and I are in the back seat, and we both get slammed kind of into the front seat, and then so we pull off onto the side of the road, and there's all this yelling and arguing and whatever. And meanwhile, Agnes and I were both complaining that we have neck injuries, but the guys get back in the car and off we drive, and we get to the engagement ceremony's house, and then there's another prayer saying, "Thank you for getting us here safely." And I'm like, what? At least two of us have injuries here. Like, how is this safely?
Yeah.
Not dead.
Yeah.
And then every day when I worked at the hospital, they had what they called devotion. And so it was like a mini church service right there in the main waiting room when patients came in to, just like here, when you go to the hospital and you get triaged and you sit in the waiting room for a little bit. That was the sort of thing, right? They'd have sort of a mini church service. And a couple of the guys would come over from the lab and they'd do the singing and the tambourine. And then they had a pastor there that would be doing his sermon and what have you, and people be crying and yelling and just like so into it, like you'd see like Black Gospel on TV, right? Like some movie from Bible Belt, United States sort of thing.
Or my Filipino relatives.
Mm-hmm.
They get so into it. They look like they're they close their eyes and they rock back and forth and they're just right into it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was interesting, and that happened every day at 7:30 in the morning. And I went a couple of times, and it was interesting. But I just wanted to see what they did.
So what did they do? I mean, is it what kind of service did they have?
It was just a little mini kind of church service, about 20 minutes in length. So mostly popular gospel songs, from what I could tell, not in English, but everybody that was there seemed to know it, and they were all happily singing along to these songs, and then prayer and sermon, and then another gospel song, and then that was it. We'd go back to work.
Wow.
And then
that's pretty pervasive, eh?
Oh, it was just way more. It was oppressive because it was way more than I expected. And then on my very last day, and then so now I had the host mom again while I was waiting to get back on the bus to go back to Accra. And then she's asking me again, so I didn't really ask you before, but how is it that you're not a believer? And what was that word that you used? It was something that started with A. And so I explained it to her all over again. And she says, I just really want to understand. Meanwhile, she's got a finger, she's holding a book in her hand, Bible quotes, and she's got a finger in one page. She's just itching to open the book up to share some stuff with me, right? And I just want to understand. I'm like, bullshit.
Yeah.
You just want to share some stuff with me. But, whatever. And had I read the Bible and had I gone to church and I finally at one point I said to her, you know what? I'm going to leave Ghana angry. I'm going to be leaving here angry that at no point was I respected for my knowledge or my desire to help. I was only disrespected as a non-believer. And then she was like, oh yeah. And then she kept talking. And then all of a sudden the lights went on and she said, wait, what did you just say? I said, I've only been disrespected as a non-believer because the pressure has been huge. And I said, first I got it from your husband, then I got it from your son, and now I'm getting it from you. And I'm really frustrated, and I've had the experience at the hospital as well. So on my very first day in the hospital, the nurse manager that I was introduced to, so they were quite disorganized there. They weren't ready for me. They didn't know I was coming. They didn't know what to do with me. But anyways, I shadowed the nurse manager for the entire day, and he involved me in everything. He got me doing an IV. He got me doing intramuscular injections. He got me doing all kinds of things. They had a little boy that was a burn patient, so he was asking my opinion on how should we treat this little guy. What do you think would be the next best practice and that sort of thing. So he really involved me. It was awesome. And then the second day, as soon as he got I was there before him, and as soon as he got in, he says, are you a Christian? It's like, oh, no.
Wow.
And he says, oh, are you a Muslim then? No. Well, what are you then? I said, nothing. I don't believe in God. And he's like, what? Nothing? No God? How can that be? What do you believe in then? And then after I told him I believe in love, I believe in if everybody could just love and accept each other, what a peaceful world this would be. That, people could stop fighting each other, that we can just accept each other, whether we're black, blue, purple, white, what, you could just move on and be okay. That's what I believe in. And he was so astounded, he ditched me for the rest of the day.
Nice.
He would not talk to me. I sat there at the nurse's station with my thumb up my ass, just feeling like, you know what, I may as well be wearing a sign right now that I've got, some dread disease that you better not come within 10 feet of me because I'm going to give it to you or something like that. I was just so horrified. And I thought, as I'm sitting there with my lip quivering and thinking like, I spent all this money to come here. And I thought, okay, well, grown up Rhonda now, you have to smarten up and grab his attention and say, okay, let's have a talk because this is what I can do for you. This is what I want to do for you. Here's how I see it going forward, right? So I grabbed him at 1:30 and I said, I really want to talk to you. And he's like, yeah, I'll be back in a minute. Gone. And at 2:00, I grabbed him again. I hunted him down and I grabbed him. I said, look, I really want to talk to you before the day is over. And he says, oh, my cousin's here in the hospital. I'm just going to go say a quick hi and I'll be right back. Well, 3:00 is quitting time and he's managed to evade me for the entire day.
Wow. And
I was just like going out to wait to get my cab on the way home and I'm just fighting back tears, right? Because now I feel overtly discriminated against based on my religious beliefs. Even though there's a sign in the hallway that says, here are patient rights. And they're very similar to Canadian patient rights, that you have the right to choose which medications you will or won't take, or which treatments you will or won't take, and that you have the right to be treated the same regardless of your religious beliefs or your race or background or, what have you, marital status and that sort of thing. And I thought, oh yeah, that applies to patients, but not to employees or volunteers.
Yeah.
Great. So it was just a horrifying day. So that was one of the things that I brought up with that host mom on my last day. I said that, I'm going to leave Ghana angry that I have been overtly discriminated against as a non-believer. And my last kind of religious experience, because it seemed to never end. I think it was around day 10 or day 11 working in the hospital. And now I kind of developed some friendships with the nurses on the ward. And so again, the subject had to come up. So what, do you go to church? And I said, no. Oh, do you go to mosque then? Now I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how many times am I going to hear this? And I'm thinking, I'm going to blast the next person that pushes this.
Uh-oh.
And I said, no, you know what? I don't believe in God, so I don't go to church. And they said, well, do you pray then? I said, well, if I don't believe in God, why would I pray? And they were just gobsmacked, like,
wow.
How can that be? How can you not believe? And they were, but at least they came across as curious because they had no idea that was even an option, that you could not believe at all.
Well,
right?
yeah, now what's going to happen to you when you die, Rhonda?
Yeah, right? I'm doomed or something.
Yeah,
no,
and you're
planted,
also
you
tainted
planted
because
the
they
seeds
teach
of
in those
reason.
churches and mosques that you are what's wrong with the world. So the fact that you can buck all of that and still be that.
Yeah.
I get that a lot here, unfortunately. I get those questions here. So I'm kind of used to them, and I managed to avoid the topic. And I admire your speaking to it because I don't know, because I'm so used to ducking and I can dodge like the best of them. I don't know if I would have addressed it.
Well, she's not finished with the story yet.
Uh-oh.
Well, that was, I think, pretty much it. They were good. The nurses were pretty good about that, and I told them, they asked the same sorts of things about, why don't you believe, and help us understand, that sort of thing, and I told them the same thing that I tell them all, I don't want to offend you with my beliefs, right? And they were like, no, we really want to know. And that was another thing that in the booklet and ahead of time, everybody said that everyone in Ghana speaks English. Oh, yeah, sure, a couple of words.
No.
So that was a bit of an issue too, right? Is trying to get past the communication barrier and explain myself. And they were pretty accepting at that point, but you could sure see that they felt strange.
Well, yeah, they don't know what to do with you. So I usually just go along with it. If I was in that situation, I would just go along and pretend I was Christian, because that's easier than, because I know more about Christianity than Muslims. So I would have just gone along and just, because I'm used to doing that. I'm used to going to church and to Bible camp and stuff with my friends, and I would be offended when I was told by everybody that, don't befriend atheists. You can be nice to them, but don't be friends with them, because atheists are evil and inherently just cannot accept and love and et cetera, et cetera. I've heard all that. So I don't want to out myself as that weirdo that is going to hell.
Oh, yeah, I was definitely not promoting. They brought it up, so I'd answer them. But after that, I dropped it entirely. I was not pushing my point of view. I was not, going on about it. You
don't have to.
Yeah, I didn't have to.
You're still the bad guy.
Still the bad guy, yeah, exactly.
Well, you didn't tell us about the prayer part.
The prayer part?
Yeah, where you showed them how prayer is useless.
Oh, yeah.
No.
That's the best part of the story.
So when they were kind of pushing, like, how can you not believe? And I said, well, there's no proof. And they said, what do you mean there's no proof? And I said, do you think prayer works? Oh, absolutely. Prayer works. The prayer is the only way to go. And I said, okay, well, here goes. So I put my hands together and held them up in front of my face. And I looked up to the rotting roof. And I closed my eyes and I said, God, I've never asked for anything before, but, if you could, please kill me right now. Right now! I really want to be killed right now to prove that you exist. And there was, they were all sitting there staring at me with their mouths wide open, right? And I said, see? And I said, please, right now, right now.
Oh my God, you're so brave.
Rhonda, but you just didn't believe enough.
Well, that may be what they were thinking. Because when I did that again with Agnes on my last day, the pastor's wife, and she said, what do you mean there's no proof? And I said, look. And I did the same thing. And she says, you know why God didn't kill you? And I was like, I said, yeah, because there's no God. And she goes, no, it's because he loves you too much. And I'm like, oh
of course.
But
There's
in
always
church,
a justification of
there's
politics.
always a reason.
Yeah, and she made that up. The church will say God didn't kill you because, well, you have to be an example and be tortured on earth and yada yada because you have no afterlife.
Yeah. It was. So I said, is that why Canadians are, have a better standard of living and whatever than Ghanaians do, because God loves the Canadians better than the Ghanaians? I said, like, how does that make sense? And she goes, oh, well, it's just like, when you have small children and one's 6 months old and one's 3 years old, of course, a 3-year-old is going to be a little bit better developed and a little better, with everything that they do.
But
and I was thinking,
culture is older than Canada by thousands of years.
Well,
exactly what I was thinking.
Oh my God.
Not First Nations culture.
Yeah, but
But yeah,
God has a plan, of course.
God has a plan, yeah.
Right?
God has a plan.
Yeah.
But our
Sucks.
culture, as it is with hospitals and laws and democracy and yada yada or whatever we are, where we're the monarchy.
I think this is an example of where religion completely hinders. I mean, it infantilizes a whole society.
Yeah. And I asked that with that very first religion discussion that I had with my coordinator when she was honestly just curious because she'd never heard of such a thing before, and she was asking me about it and stuff. And so I asked her, I said, let me ask you something. I said, do you really believe all this stuff? Or is it just because it's the only thing you've ever known your entire life? So you think you believe it? And I said, I don't want an answer or whatever. I was just, throwing it out there.
Poisoning the well.
Poisoning the well, yep. She still likes to talk to me, though, so she was a little open-minded about it.
Yeah. Well, they know God has his reasons about why you are, and you'll come before you die. You'll on your deathbed you'll repent.
Yep.
Yeah. I've gone to church enough to know. Us atheists are very explainable.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my fun experience. Even though my hospital experience was something else, and I really what I said on that last day to Agnes about I'm leaving Ghana angry, that I was so disrespectful.
Angry atheist.
Angry atheist, yeah. Because no one could leave it alone. They were like a frickin' pit bull with a bone, for crying out loud, and no one would just frickin' leave it alone. How's about, what do you know? And they didn't want to hear anything about, Canadian knowledge or here's how we could do this patient's care better or anything. They didn't want to hear anything of it. And I get that because
you know how he asked you at the beginning, how would you go forward and yada yada, and suddenly an atheist, they don't want to hear it.
Yep, that's it. Yeah. It's a game over. I don't want to hear anything you have to say.
Mm-hmm. You're not smart enough. You're evil. Yada yada. This is why when I get into a situation, I just go along with them. I don't say anything. I'd rather they not know.
Well, I tried to avoid it for all I was worth because I thought I don't want to go there. This is more Randy's forte than mine. I'm not going to be, having it tattooed on my forehead. Hey, fuck you.
But once they know, that's it.
Yeah.
You're a pariah.
Yep.
I live for that.
Yeah. You should have gone, Randy. Oh my God.
It would have been interesting. I would be more interested in taking photographs of people there.
I'd been a widow on day one. It would have been bad.
I'd go to their church and I'd be taking pictures and I'd be...
Randy, steal their soul.
Respect the culture.
Steal their soul. Oh, no. That is so... what's that? Is that a microaggression or what?
Totally. No. Yes.
It's more macro. It's another macroaggression.
There are lots of cultures and religions that, believe that, if you take photos, you steal the soul of the people. Yeah. Quite a few.
Be disrespectful in the church, man, I bet, if they're that freaking religious.
I would never be disrespectful in a church. Never. No, I seriously wouldn't. It's not my place.
Well, if you're taking pictures and they're going to see it that way.
Well, He'd just be gagging before he burst into flames.
Okay. I would be gagging. I'm not saying I wouldn't be gagging. I'm just saying I wouldn't be disrespectful. Or burst, basically steaming, in the back with the holy water, hitting me and then burning and, the burning and the hellfire and,
Actually, I said this like when I was on vacation in Mexico years ago, and the couple that we kind of were hanging out with, we're going to go look at some churches, and I said to them, I'd like to go with you, except that I think if I step into one, it's going to burst into flames as I walk in.
No, you would burst into flames.
Whatever.
Get right, man. Well, and the funny thing is, it's better for religious people to know that you're a sworn enemy like Muslim rather than atheist, because in Africa, in Egypt and such, Christians get killed and such, and vice versa in other areas where the one is dominant. It's still better to be the enemy than the evil one.
Oh, there's no such thing as reverse religious oppression. So, no such thing. Wow. No, thank you. Thank you, Rhonda. You got any questions for Rhonda?
Well, I kind of know how she feels living here. You let a religious person know here that you're not religious? I've been told to my face, my biggest flaw, and this is by someone who's a friend, for goodness sakes, is that I'm not religious.
That's not a flaw.
Oh, yeah, it's my biggest flaw.
It's so foreign to me because I grew up in such a different context, and yet we grew up... Not, a couple hours drive,
like Rhonda into the extreme like that, it would have been a freaking shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish the volunteer organization had sort of prepped ahead for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
I did some digging online, and I saw that they were a Christian country and that sort of stuff, right? But I wasn't prepared for just how much, and I never brought it up myself. I was just like... It's no difference whether I'm white or Christian or whatever. Like in my faith, my belief, my values, none of this matters. We have sick people. We need work needs to be done, and let's do that, right? And
so I never brought it up with your atheism.
And in a way, I'm really glad that it came up because so many people had never even heard of it. Now they've heard of it.
Yeah, like I was going to say earlier, you're planting the seeds. You're planting the seeds of doubt, and people have never been exposed to this.
They're going to cut that seed open and try to friggin' mash it.
I don't know. I think if you plant the seeds, they're going to come to fruition at some point, even if, obviously you don't. I don't know. I'm not interested in converting people to atheism, but I think, well, I don't give a shit as long as they keep their bullshit to themselves. Keep your shit
They
to
don't.
yourselves.
That's the whole problem.
Well, if they do, I don't get. There are a lot of people that do keep their religion private, and I respect those people, and have at it kind of thing. But I'm pretty sure that in the course of my being very openly atheist throughout my life, except for dabbling in some stuff when I was a kid, that I've opened people's minds up to, like it's very normal to me, and I think I what's the word I want to say? Portrayed that. Gave that vibe, so to speak, right? Like, yeah, I'm an atheist, no big deal, right?
Yeah.
And I think
people at work know that as long as I'm quiet about it, they don't mind.
Yeah.
So as long as I don't talk about it, and they were surprised. Like, there is another atheist in the office, and he's.
I was going to say, yeah, I was going to say there's at least another one. At least in Canada, you will find that. And this is the first time I've worked with someone who's also an atheist, and I do avoid the topic. But the thing is, it came up again when we were working together, just the three, me, him, and another lady, and she obviously knows I'm an atheist, but the fact that my son's not came up, and they're like, but he's your son. I'm like, and I'm not going to tell him he's wrong. He's not into reading and stuff like I am. He's going to have different life experiences, and I'm not going to tell him he's wrong. They seem to think that atheists are intolerant of religion. However, why would I tell my son he's wrong and try to change him? Yeah. Actually, I have a funny story. I had a tenant who was an atheist, and at one point he said to me, I'm so disappointed in my son. I tried to raise him as a good atheist, but he went off into some, like, not just, Christian thing, but like young earth creationism kind of nonsense, right? But it was funny, like, I'm so disappointed. I tried to raise him as a good atheist. You're kind of the opposite usually, right? Yeah.
I'm not going to tell my kid who's happy that he's wrong, and I'm not going to be an asshole to him. I don't want him thinking I'm a big jerk.
Yeah, of course not.
But the thing is, with Rhonda's experience, it's their job to be a jerk. Their religion teaches them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they've got the good book, and the book is good because the book says it's good.
Yeah.
And only a good book would know that it's good.
Yeah.
Like Tim mentioned.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Double standard. They assume atheists are intolerant because they are.
Yeah. I'll be the first to step in line and defend freedom of religion. Just don't shove it down my throat.
Yeah, it doesn't work the other way around, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll protect your ass. Have you got mine? No.
And they don't.
No. You're evil. Not. I'm not talking to you. I'm not letting you,
That's not necessarily true, because I think actually, in my experience, a lot of people have had my ass, even if I am an atheist and they were Christians.
Not mine. Not if they're fervently religious, no.
Well, you're in redneck central. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot of Christians who are quite adamantly secular, right?
Mind you, I do know.
But they're not loud. They need to be louder.
Yeah,
I do know deists that are very tolerant, and they're of course friends with me, but they're not Christian.
Yeah. Deism's a whole other thing, really.
Yeah, you just believe in something out there. I married a deist.
Well, the prime mover kind of thing, right?
Atheism light.
God started something and then was hands off after that. Is kind of the deist.
Or something's out there. I'm not sure what exactly it is, and I'm not going to say it. Those people are open-minded. It's those die-hard atheists or evil people that are the ones that are intolerant.
Anyway, I guess we should probably sign off for a week or so.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Rhonda. Yeah. I feel for you because I've sat in church where they've showed a film about what's going to happen to fucking atheists, and it's hellfire and terrible, and the atheists are the worst thing on earth, and they're gonna look at you like you're a freaking monster.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not fun, and I was thinking, I wonder if this pastor is going to be using me in one of his sermons one day.
He'll probably say you converted before you left.
What's that?
He'll probably say you converted before you left.
Oh yeah, probably.
I hope he does use it, because he's going to be, you're a shining example of, unlike me, you're a shining example of a humanist. Much more than I am, anyway.
But he will say she converted before she left, so now she's going to go home a shining example of a Christian.
Yeah, no.
That's possible. Although that would be very unchristian of him to do that.
Yeah.
But they don't see it that way.
They don't see it
proselytization is a mandate of some strands of Christianity.
Who is left to proselytize to in Ghana?
They just do it.
The Muslims,
I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose.
And
yeah,
you know what? Ayaan Hirsi Ali would probably advocate for something like that because she thinks that
I don't think she does anymore.
I'm
not sure she does anymore.
Yeah, I thought that was a fairly recent thing, but
no, it was a few years back when she was saying that they should become converted to Christians, but I don't think she espouses that idea anymore.
It's a tough one to defend, but I can see her point. Either you try and reform the
it smacks of desperation, actually, to me.
But there's that argument that it's impossible to reform Islam because the claims are essentially set in stone. Like, unlike Christianity, where we've negotiated the claims.
Wait a minute. Are you saying the 10 Commandments are not set in stone?
I didn't mean it in that literal sense. Metaphors here. You know what I mean, right?
Metaphorical stuff. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
so
not the best argument.
Anyway, that's it. I think we should shut her down. That's it for this episode of Legion of Reason Diversion, and hopefully people will like this and will retweet, or you can find us on Twitter, by the way, at legionofreason.com. No, that's the website.
Oh dear.
At Legion of Reason. There we go. One word. That's
Legion
on
of
Twitter. Check out our Facebook page. Also, of course, the actual website where we serves as our repository. Facebook page is the most important one to go to because then you can like us and get all the stories and stuff that you can read beforehand and stuff that we don't actually talk about on the podcast because we don't have time. So anyway, I think that's it for tonight. So say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
And thanks, of course, to my darling wife, Rhonda, and for her regaling us with her tales of a culture
surviving that
foreign to us.
Oh my gosh.
And I couldn't even drink there. Oh my god.
Oh no.
Except for the one time. Except for the one time. That's funny. There's bars there, but they think
nobody
it's terrible.
drinks apparently. Yeah.
No one drinks.
What do they serve there?
Oh, you can get anything. Beer, wine, gin, rum, whatever, anything you want. But apparently nobody drinks.
Yeah.
Isn't there some kind of thing where they turn people into what they call zombies, and it's some kind of drug that?
You're thinking voodoo.
Yeah, but there was some kind of I remember reading in either Skeptic or Skeptical Inquirer years ago about there being some kind of drug that essentially made people complacent, and so this whole zombie thing had an empirical.
It does have a basis in reality. Yeah,
a basis in cruelty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cruelty, reality.
Yeah.
Reality is cruel.
Yep.
Yeah. Or I should say indifferent. But all right, I'm going to shut it off now.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.